Welcome to Broadcast to Badass by Best Life Ever with your host, Kimi and Pua. If you're ready to stop struggling, stop hustling, and start living your best life ever, you are in the right place. And wherever you're listening to this, be sure that you click subscribe so that you never miss an episode.
We are so excited to welcome Ali Boone on the podcast today. Ali is the owner of Hipster Investing, an easy, hands-off real estate investing company. Ali, in our opinion, is kind of a superhero. She buys real estate investments, has a degree in aerospace engineering, is a pilot, loves camping, the outdoors, the beach, and sunshine. She loves sleeping in. She's got dogs, plays rugby, and she helps people to achieve passive income goals by helping them to really understand and invest in real estate. Ali is such a badass, and we cannot wait for you to hear what she has to say.
Welcome, Ali, to the podcast. How are you?
I am amazing. I'm so excited to talk to you guys. I can't even stand it. The anticipation is killing me.
Oh my gosh, us too. We are so excited to get to know you better. You have an amazing bio. You clearly have an amazing story, and we can't wait to hear about who you are and what you do in this world. So tell us in your own words a little bit more about what is it that you do?
That is a very popular question, even amongst my friends. Nobody can, even my friends, they're like, was it Seinfeld or Friends or one of those? I think it was maybe Friends was it like Chandler that
no
had
one knows
a job
what Chandler
and none of his
does.
friends understood what it was. Like,
Yeah.
I get called that often.
So you're a transponster.
Yeah, totally. I'll have occasionally a friend will just kind of look at me out of the blue and be like, I don't even know what it is you do. And I'm like, well, that's how I roll. What do I do? So I currently live in Venice Beach, and I have a company called Hipster Investments, and I'm kind of like it started out, I'm kind of a glorified matchmaker between like buyers and sellers in investment properties. And it's kind of converted into my new title that I've given myself is emotional support animal. And so I work with a lot of first-time investors, and I really try and I'm huge on this passive income thing. Like, I'm all for lifestyle design, waking up when I want to, not having to report to a job. So we really try and promote that within the real estate investing. And then I've also recently gotten into business consulting, which I really have a huge passion for. I love business. I love talking about it. I love troubleshooting it. So that's kind of a new thing. And then my former life, long before all of those, I was an aerospace engineer, and I had the corporate job, and I was working like top secret flight tests on really cool stuff. And I supposedly had the dream job, but I hated every minute of it. And from the minute I walked into that cubicle, I just needed a way out. So it took a few years to kind of get my groove going. And now I'm a total beach bum, sleeping in and doing what I want.
We call that a total badass.
Can I get that in writing with the signature?
Sure can.
If anyone's ever confused, I'll just show them my little official badass card.
Yeah, we have a what's it called? A little badge. Yeah.
Oh, perfect.
We'll get you one of those. I'm just kidding. We don't, but we should. That's so rad, and we are so excited to have you because you're just so our people. We don't do any sort of real estate. We collectively know almost nothing about it. But
that's true.
That's what it's so great about having you here is that you embody the same lifestyle that we are coaching our clients to achieve through just a different way. And, we would love for you to share a little bit about how you've achieved this life and what your experience was. And maybe you can even start from, how did you shift out of breaking free from the societal norms of having that dream job that everybody was probably like, wow, she is successful. She did it. Like, that's awesome. Check that off her list. Well, you were inside sad and suffering, and, it can be challenging. I know for us, like, we've had a lot of, for myself, pressure from our parents, right, to follow that path, be successful, because they want their kids to be able to survive and succeed and thrive. And there are so many ways to do that. So I'd love to hear your story and how you kind of navigated each of these different paths in your life.
Yeah, totally. And, everything you're hitting on, it's really one of my favorite things to talk about because just like you said, our parents expect certain things out of us. And I was just telling someone yesterday that she was talking about having hung out with a 16-year-old, and this girl is having a hard time in math, for example, in high school, but she's really an amazing writer. And we got into this whole conversation about, like school. I'm a big fan of everybody strengthening their strengths. And it just drives me crazy that, I get why we all have to go to school, but some people, not everyone should be good at math. Like, we just don't need everyone on the planet doing math. And, it really sets people up to feel horrible about themselves because it's like, oh, you have to do this math. And I know you're an artist, but you got to do calculus anyways, and you're going to fail it. So then you're going to feel bad about yourself. And, it's this whole thing. And I think part of becoming an adult, at least for me and kind of in this journey, was really kind of putting aside societal norms and my parents' expectations and whatever, and deciding for me who I was, because I had the degree in engineering, I had the dream job, I had all these things, and I pulled it off. I was fine in the work, but I hated it. And, I like talking, and engineers, I had the hardest time getting any of them to socialize with me. And, it's really so much of growing up is just figuring out what it is we're actually good at and what we really enjoy, because for the first half of our lives with school and everything, it's kind of like, oh, well, it doesn't really matter what you're good at or what you do. We're going to make you take calculus anyways, kind of thing. And so a lot of the journey for me was finding that out. So when I walked into my cubicle, like I said, I looked at the cubicle. It was all gray. I had just walked through like a mile-long tunnel underground. I looked down at what I was wearing. I hate wearing business casual clothes. And I was like, oh, God. I was like, oh, this is bad. And I gave it a shot for as long as I could. But in that time, I didn't know how I was going to get out of corporate. I didn't have a particular service. I didn't have a particular product I could offer people. I didn't know what it was going to be. And so what I think really helped me do that is I just started exploring everything. I had in my head that real estate and business were the two things that could get you out of your job. And so I was actually exploring too many things because I didn't hone in on something, and I was just kind of scattered. And I finally realized I was going to have to pick something and go towards it. And of course, as soon as I did that, it became something else. But it's really, I'm a huge fan of the idea of really letting things happen organically. Like, I busted balls for years just trying things, and I went around with real estate agents, and I didn't know what I was looking at, but I pretended I did, and I'd go to conferences and I pretended I knew what I was talking about, but I really didn't. And just really, it was so intention based. I didn't know how it was going to happen. I didn't know via what vehicle, anything. It's just I wanted freedom. My big thing was, well, two things. Number one, if a friend invited me to lunch any random day, I wanted to be able to say yes, because when I had my corporate job, I couldn't. I had to be at work. And same with like even vacation days, like I'd have to take vacation days and ask for them off, and I just want to go. And then the other thing was, in college, I was working as a flight instructor, teaching people to fly. And that was my office. The sky was my office, and it was amazing. But the pay for flight instructors isn't exactly a wealth builder. And so I wanted the freedom to be able to go do that job without being reliant on the income, because I knew if I was relying on the income and it stressed me out, I was probably going to end up hating the job. But I loved teaching flying. So those were the things in my head. Again, I didn't know how it was going to happen, but I needed those things to happen. I needed the freedom to pick and choose my schedule and be my own boss. And I really, at one point there was talk when I was younger of going into the Air Force and flying planes for them. And in hindsight, that is absolutely laughable, because pretty much anytime someone tells me something to do, I will purposely not do it. Like I don't listen to authority very well. So the military may not have worked out very well. But, it was really, it was that drive for freedom. That's what had to happen. And there was no negotiating. And that kind of led me through just a constant exploration and trying to find opportunities that worked. And in that, finding what kind of came naturally to me and following that. Because I think when everyone follows their own strengths, what comes naturally to them, that's where the success really is, because then you don't have to worry about fighting an uphill battle or anything. And that's, can you imagine if everybody actually did what they liked doing and were good at doing? I feel like it would bring world peace.
Oh my God, you're speaking our language.
I hire you.
Did we just solve world peace? I think
Yes.
we did.
Like people always ask us like, how can we get a Kimi? How can we get a Pua? We'll be like, we just found her. Her name is Ali Boone.
Seriously. Wow. That was the most amazing answer to Pua's question ever. Like there was
Thanks. I started to, like, you were hitting my fun topics. Like I could go on for hours because all of that, and I really try and tell people, and you guys know this, there is so much power and magic in having a life that you enjoy. And like I tell people all the time, I hate to admit it, I love sleeping in. It's one of my greatest joys in life. And I've structured my life now I go to bed when my body's tired and I wake up for the most part when it wants to wake up. And it's those small things, like just the ability to say yes to a lunch, or sleeping in, or picking and choosing which jobs I want to do and which ones I don't. I mean, I just feel like so many people don't realize how exponentially greater your quality of life can be when you're just following your own rhythm.
I swear, guys,
Wow.
we didn't pay her to say any of this. We didn't plant these answers. She's just like the most badass human, and we connected. It was,
Yes.
guys, this is amazing. You're amazing.
Wow.
Gosh.
Wow. I love that.
Later.
Oh my gosh. We say the word freedom all the time. And I love the way too in your answer, it was really you connecting to the contrast of what you actually wanted that helped you to move towards what you wanted, right? So really like recognizing that you felt like you didn't just stuff those frustrating feelings of feeling like, God, I can't do the things that I want to. You like let it create change in your life. You let it drive you towards change. And wow, that's so awesome. Okay. So because as Pua said, we know nothing really about real estate at all. Tell us a little bit about just the logistics of what it is that you do and how does that, we heard the word passive income, which really always perks our ears up and gets us excited. So tell us more.
Making money while you sleep?
Yes.
It's like freedom for your clients, right?
Yeah. Tell us about that.
So the short of it is, when I started when I started exploring real estate investing, I should say, I really wasn't connecting with anything, because the old adage is that you have to go negotiate or you have to find deals and you have to negotiate deals and you have to swing hammers and then, all the typical belief around real estate. And I mean, I'm pretty smart. I can figure that kind of stuff out, but it just wasn't really resonating. And so as I had actually decided to go the business route. Like I said, I was trying to decide between real estate and business, and the real estate, I was like, I really don't want to swing a hammer and yada, yada, yada. And so I decided to go the business route, but a little while after that, I got this random alert for a real estate webinar. And the short of it is that I found out that there are ways to invest in real estate without even lifting a finger, and that's the kind of opportunities that I work with, because, the reality is that a lot of people either really like their job or they're busy with family, or like me, I live in Los Angeles and it's really hard to get a deal here, like impossible. And so most people in California buy out of state, but then if you're not local to it, how do you manage it? How do you do all these things? And so there's other concepts outside of flipping properties and all that kind of stuff. So the one I work with in particular is turnkey rental properties. And the term turnkey refers to, like, if you were to just stick the key in the door and turn the knob, then you're cash flowing on day one. So like these properties that I work with, the rental income on them each month is higher than your expenses, mortgage included and everything. So that extra income every month you're pocketing. And then on top of that, you get tax benefits and appreciation and all that kind of stuff. And you own real property. Like as soon as you own real property, there's a lot of advantages, especially tax wise. And, unlike stocks, you have more control over it, whatever. And it's not a flawless system by any means. And it does require your brain to be slightly screwed on your shoulders occasionally, despite what some people tend to think. But, it's so these turnkey rental properties, what happens is in these markets where you can cash flow, like Hawaii, for example, is similar to Los Angeles. Like it's really hard to get cash flow there because chances are the purchase price of the property is going to be so much higher than what you could ask for in rent that you would actually be cash flow negative each month. So these properties are in markets where you can buy properties that'll put cash flow in your pocket every month. And the companies that I work with are turnkey rental property companies or turnkey companies, and they go out and they find all the distressed inventory. They negotiate all the deals. They do the rehab. They put the tenants in. They do everything, all the hard stuff for you. So then if you decide you want to buy one of these properties, all you're doing, you do have a responsibility for due diligence. Like you need to verify things like typical due diligence, but you don't have to swing a hammer. You don't have to do any of the work. And you buy the property ready to go. So the minute you close on it, there's already tenants in there paying and you're making cash flow on day one. So it really opened up my eyes because I was like, now we're talking my jam. Like I am all for working as little as possible. And so my absolute favorite example, and I just feel like you guys will like this, and that's why it's coming to my head, but I was in Nicaragua actually one time sitting in the pool with a pina colada in my hand, and I got a message from the property manager on one of my properties. So once I buy these properties, they come with property management, so they are the landlords. And he said, hey, a storm blew through, it blew half the roof off, what do you want me to do? And I hung up with him. I called my insurance company. I put the claim in. I sent him a message saying, hey, they're going to call you to schedule, whatever. And I hung up with him and I went back to sipping my pina colada. I mean, it maybe took 10 minutes grand total, and a roof had blown off one of my properties. And that's all I had to do with it. They coordinated with the insurance. Everything was done for me. And I was like, thanks, guys. I literally didn't have to leave the poolside. So the idea with real estate investing too is that I'm a big advocate of helping people understand that you can be, if you want to go flip houses, for example, that's great. It can be extremely lucrative, but you are working at that point. Like until you're fancy enough with it, you get systems and employees and whatever. But if you flip a house and you're swinging hammers, you're working. And that is, in a sense, some of it's passive income, but a lot of it's active income. So like my properties, for example, I spend very minimal time on them, and that's passive. I still make money while I'm not working. And that, the passive income thing is really a huge and almost imperative ticket to lifestyle design, if that's what you're seeking, because you need to be able to make money without you as a person being required in the equation. And so, nothing's completely hands off. You still have to tend to things, but even my company, for example, I have employees. So a couple months ago, I went to Alaska for a week and my employees ran everything. I continued to make money without me being a required person. Whereas like if I was flipping a house, I'm required to swing that hammer. So that's a big distinction we try and explain. And so all of the real estate stuff that we work with is really focused on the passive income side of things versus the active, because we really want to free people up and just give them, more hands-off options.
That's incredible.
Wow.
I'm in. I love that you define passive income and lifestyle design by something happening for you without you being a part of the process.
Mm-hmm.
Like 90%, right? Like it's, of course,
as much as possible.
Right. And the thing that I think passive income and residual income, I think are really big buzzwords these days.
Yeah.
And people, for a good reason, people are really craving that freedom. They want to go to lunch whenever they want to. They want to not have to ask permission from this person to, be sick or to spend time with their family for more than 2 days in a row.
That's permission to be sick.
Right? Like you get 3 sick days. So if you're sick for more than 3 days, then you're not allowed to be sick. Right?
Which is probably the job that's making you sick in the first place.
Exactly. Totally. And I love that. I mean, I think we're starting to come full circle as a society and really waking up to the possibility of not having to be so restricted by a corporation. And I think that's really beautiful and the way that you put it. And so to kind of go back to wherever my brain is going right now, people are creating quote unquote residual income streams, but they are so heavily tied to it that it's not really residual. And what I love about what you explained and what you do is you really help people to achieve that true level of freedom. And it's just really beautiful. So thank you so much for describing that.
Yeah.
And I'd love to hear what like, are there any examples of your clients who had really been feeling stuck and either invested in real estate or sought some sort of advice from you and how they're living, I guess, their best life ever now?
Well, it was interesting when I started the company. I thought that, well, and this is not to say this isn't the case for everybody, but I really thought that a lot of people I worked with would be striving for total financial freedom. Because when you have total financial freedom, you don't have to work and you can just kind of do your thing. And what's kind of come of it, and I don't know if this is just, I don't know if it's because it hasn't been enough time yet or whatever, but I've really kind of ended up getting more of the people who have full-time jobs and they're just wanting to do something smart with their money and they're not wanting to take on a second job. Because that's really the thing, is a lot of times people become a real estate investor, but it forces them to now have a second job on top of their first job because they're having to flip their house or swing their hammer or whatever. And like the turnkeys it's just somewhere to put your money and have it work for you and you not have to take on a second job. So I actually, I don't know that this is such a bad shtick for my company. I don't know that anyone's really gotten to the financial freedom part necessarily, but not because they weren't trying to. I think somehow I've just kind of attracted more of the people, who are pretty content in their jobs and whatever. But, I think it would be so amazing to meet more like you guys. Like, I actually don't meet many people that are doing what you guys are doing and doing what I'm doing. Quite frankly, I get bored a lot because a lot of my friends are still working. I'm like, well, but what about that lunch thing? And they're like, no, work. I'm like, well, So
we'll go to lunch with you.
Oh, yay, fun. Yeah, it's been, I think it's a little bit also a newer concept too of really kind of making it work, because in my experience, like the very first book I ever read that really changed my mind about money and real estate and all that kind of stuff was Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, and which is oftentimes everybody's first book. And so I heard everything he said about passive income and I really jived with it. And then I, of course, read The 4-Hour Workweek with Tim Ferriss, who pretty much kind of coined the term lifestyle design. But what I found for myself in those two books was Robert Kiyosaki, from everything I could tell, did a great job of explaining passive income, but he didn't really go into the depths of what that can really do for your life. Whereas Tim Ferriss really went into the depths of what passive income can do for your life, but he didn't really tell people how to get it unless you're going to start a t-shirt company like he did. And so when I came into it, I was confused. Like, I didn't realize that financial freedom really was possible. I mean, it was kind of a, dream or something, and it seemed conceptually okay, but not feasible. And then I wanted Tim Ferriss's life, but I didn't really know how to get it either. And so where I try and kind of explain to people, and so my point of that is I feel like people are just now kind of figuring out how these things all tie together. Like, lifestyle design sounds really good conceptually, but people don't really put all the pieces together to figure out how this can happen and what it can really do for you. And so I don't know if that's why I don't know more people that are doing it or, but I sadly can't really speak to anyone doing their best life ever.
Well, I think you can, and
it's you.
It's a different, yeah, totally, and perhaps the people who have come to you thus far don't have the intention, as you said, to maybe leave their job, but it sounds like they are achieving a level of financial freedom that they didn't have before they worked with you, and perhaps that's the only intention they have, because that sounds better than working a second job, right? Like, letting money instead of putting more energy out. So
well, and if you think about it, like, you can even, like, people who aren't going for full financial freedom, maybe they just want, like you said, some level of financial freedom. For example, if you have a rental property that pays you $300 a month in positive cash flow, that might take the place of, say, your grocery bill or something worth $300. And when you really break it down, it doesn't take, I mean, I'm in Los Angeles, it's super expensive, but a lot of times it doesn't take as many rental properties, for example, to really help you with your costs. Because if I have this property that is now funding all my groceries, and then maybe I have a second property that's now funding, say, all my utilities, or, I slowly kind of work towards getting my expenses covered. And the minute my expenses are covered, freedom starts. Like, it makes a big difference. And, if people are short on cash or, there's just so many possibilities with it. And, I think too with real estate, none of us learned real estate investing in school. I mean, my God, we didn't even learn how to do our taxes in school. Like, we learned about parallelograms.
Isn't that crazy? I think that's absurd.
I saw a meme one time that said, let's see, I'm so glad I learned about parallelograms in school. They've really come in handy this parallelogram season. Like, it was of course put out during tax season, but it's so true. So real estate has been a little trickier because none of us have a background. Like, you literally have to teach yourself everything you're going to learn and do because there's been no help. Maybe there's some degrees now or something that kind of help, but so I think it's now with the internet and everything, there's a lot more resources, but even with so many resources now, it's kind of gotten confusing. So it's, I really try and present myself as just breaking things down the simple way, because I feel like it's so needed right now that everything's so complicated. And like, here's how you can do it. If you want to be Robert Kiyosaki and Tim Ferriss, here are your options. And that's what I really like. Especially once I get into a business ramble, I love talking about that kind of stuff and how to structure those things.
Love it. We love this conversation so much. It's so much about possibility, what gets me really excited is just thinking about somebody listening to this right now and it just totally shifting their paradigm, right? Where they go like, oh, like I thought this was the way that it had to be, but no, actually here is somebody that is living in a completely different way. And that is so powerful. And I also, go ahead.
A quick one is I always think about, like, I do not watch the news at all. Like, the only news that I ever see, if it's on Instagram, maybe I get something about it. Otherwise, I don't watch the news. And that, for example, my whole life, people have said, well, how do you not watch the news? How do you not stay current on events and whatever? Well, I get that the rest of the world doesn't agree with me on that. But when I don't watch the news, I live in this ignorant little bubble of bliss that is just happy. And so why do I have to watch the news if it's going to make me miserable and stress me out? Like, it's those, you said like a paradigm shift of it's, and sleeping in. Everybody shuns that. I'm like, well, guess what? I just like sleeping in. And guess what? I'm just happy as a duck if I'm completely ignorant to all the drama in the world. And, not to say I will never be informed or whatever, but I choose those things that society really frowns upon because they make me happy and they make my life a high quality. And, just like you're saying, it's the possibilities in that and realizing there are no right or wrongs in this world. Like, whatever your desire is, follow it, for God's sakes. If you want to sleep until noon, sleep until noon. You're probably going to be a perkier, more energetic person on the hours you are awake. You might get a ton of work done at midnight like I do. And, really just... I kind of hate to say take the world by the balls, but take it by the balls and do whatever, like you do you. And if we all did that, whatever it is, whatever society says is right or wrong, do you. And seriously, back to the whole world peace thing. I just think but it really, it's going against the norms and having the balls to do that.
Totally. And we value freedom so much as individuals and as a company. And I think you just really hit the nail on the head with choice. Like, the thing that makes me feel the most suffocated is knowing that I don't have the choice. Like, and that comes with, having debt, that comes from working a job, that comes from many different places. And what I love, like, watching the news or not watching the news, who gives a shit? As long as you can choose to like get information wherever you get it. Like, the news is so mediated also. Like, we can go on forever about that part. So I'm with you, sister. But like, it's just freedom of choice is so powerful. And what's so cool about what you are doing is providing freedom of choice to people for things that would normally feel beyond their control.
Right.
Like, in like the prescripted societal, trajectory, we seek jobs that can maximize our salary, but at the end of the day, it's capped.
Yeah.
And think that that's all we can get. It's the best that we can do. So to really like shatter, as Kimi said, shatter paradigms and say, you can have as much wealth as you desire to create the lifestyle that you desire is so so powerful. And I love that this is another place for people to learn this and to put it out there in the world and really, as you said, heal the world.
Yeah. And, I've seen my own level of happiness really just increase. I mean, I'm so joyful about just even the little things that happen in a day. And I've really changed. Like, I really was this former engineer, pilot, left brain math geek. And as I found out for myself, like, if we won't do it now, but like, if you were to take this into a totally spiritual perspective, then it's more like, I thought I was this left brain math geek, and it turns out I'm not. I love talking to people. I thought I was shy my entire life, and now I still have my moments, but I can pretty much talk to a fence post. And, this whole self-discovery thing as part of this journey is just been, it's game changing, because again, we all grew up being told what we should be doing or what we shouldn't do, or we should be good at math, or we should be all these things. And that's all we hear. And that's all we know how to hear. That it really, once you start kind of waking up to that and be like, oh, wait a minute. I've kind of always wanted to do this or whatever. Like, I wonder if I could do that. Well, guess what? You probably can. And yeah, just shattering, all this nonsense that's pumped into our brains for our whole lives. And yeah, like this whole financial freedom thing or breaking free or whatever. I actually have one of my very best friends. She was in a job hunt a few years ago or whatever. And I, of course, think everybody wants financial freedom and wants to be an entrepreneur. And I'm like, start your own thing. And she said, honestly, I am so happy just having a job that covers my expenses. I go to it every day, 9 to 5, and I get to go home and relax. She's like, I totally hear you with this entrepreneur thing and whatever. She goes, but I really like just going to my little measly job every day. And it was in that moment I was like, wow, it's so true that we just all have different desires. None of us can say what's best for another person. And so whatever that desire is, even if I can't even imagine wanting to have a 9 to 5 job, somebody else might like that. And, it's really honoring everybody around us to do what they want to do and ourselves, and just honoring what we want to do ourselves.
Amen.
Amen.
I do love, though, I have to say, I love so much. I feel like those of us like you're brave enough to speak up about how, like, you have a low tolerance for not having freedom in your life, right? Like,
low is an overstatement or understatement or something,
right?
You know what? I actually, it's a lot of people who know me know that this has been a thing. Despite being in Los Angeles, I've always only liked stick shift cars. I hate automatic cars, and I never really understood why that was. And I finally realized one day, I was like, oh my God, I don't even want my own transmission deciding when I'm going to shift.
Yes.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
Maybe now it's a little on the extreme side, but I, to this day, still drive a stick shift because I want to decide when I'm going to shift my transmission.
I love that. And what that does then is it becomes permission for others to say, like, oh yeah, like, that's okay. I can sleep until 12 and drive stick shift and do what I want. And so thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
It's almost crazier than sleeping in every day per societal norm.
Oh, well, we love you. We just love you. And where can people find out more about you, and how do you work with people? What's the best place for people to start in terms of having a conversation with you or your company, getting to know you better?
Yeah, for sure. So if anyone ever wants to just reach out directly, the fastest way to get me is my email, which is Ali, ALI, at hipsterinvestments.com. And my company site, Hipster Investments, is hipsterinvestments.com. And then, like I said, I've recently started doing more business consulting, and that website is just my name, Ali Boone, BOONE.com. So let's see, I did all that backwards. ALIBOONE.com. So aliboone.com. But like I said, you can always email me directly. Let me know, if you want help with real estate, if you want to check different stuff out, or if you have business stuff going on, or even if you just want to say hi. I love talking to people, and I'm making up for lost years trying to talk to all the engineers who wouldn't talk to me. So, reach out, and certainly, like, if you guys know anyone, or if anyone listening has broken free, like, I would love to, since you kind of brought that to my attention, I would love to meet more people who have actually done it, because I'm usually kind of always talking about my own story, and it'd be so great to have more people in that world who are doing it.
Oh my gosh. Join our tribe on Facebook. We have a free Facebook group called the Best Life Ever Tribe. And we'll post your interview there and we'll promo it all over our channels. But we would love for our tribe members to meet you and chat with you about this because I think they'd just fall in love with you.
Well, you want to hear something funny? I have never once had a Facebook page.
Oh, don't start now, girlfriend.
I mean, just slide that in at the end. I'm like, oh, bye guys, time's up. See ya.
It's all good.
I wish
we respect
every day.
that.
I hate to admit this because we coach on Facebook every day, but I wish that I wasn't so tied to it in so many different ways, and I don't like it, and I'm so jealous of you. And I guess that's just a bullshit story in my own head, and I could cancel it whenever I want. But
Well,
yeah,
I'm the same way with Instagram. Like, I hate how much I love Instagram's my thing. I just like looking at pictures, but even that, like, I swear I can't get through a 30-minute sitcom without checking for new pictures. And even that's kind of, I'm like, oh my God, I can't even imagine what Facebook would do to me. But to your point, it really is a little bit of a hinder on the business front for just reasons like this, you know, being able to connect with people. Like, I am actually very legitimately missing out on some really cool things by not being on it. But, you know,
You're
I don't
really
watch
not. You're really not. Many people are missing out on things because they're on Facebook. So don't worry.
Touche. Good point.
But we are on Instagram too, so definitely connect with us there, and we'll just keep you in the loop and you know, connect you where and when we can because you're just so badass and we love you.
Thank you. Well, and I'd love to stay in touch with you guys because you guys are totally my jam. So let's stay in touch and talk lots.
Love
Sounds
it.
good. Thanks for joining us today.
All right. Well, thanks for having me.
As always, we can continue the conversation in our tribe on Facebook. You can find that at bit.ly/BLE tribe.
And if you guys are ready to take action and level up your life and your business, jump on the phone with us and book a breakthrough call. You can find out all about our 8-week course and all of the ways that we support you and your business dreams at brokeasstobadass.com.